All right, so we've got short reviews for April 10th. These another group of six. I was going to include a lot more this time around, but I decided I would just get to the stuff that really was hitting, the stuff that was different, not just go through the motions here. So this is just meant to be for the sake of variety, a couple of standards I couldn't get around to. And the first one is Zappaduster's Nabel Schlucker, which is an EP, a rural black metal punk band, which features members from the Helvetic Underground Committee, which is specifically members of Kveilgeist, Ungfell, and Urgeist. And this is a folkish black metal version of black metal punk that features like 5 to 6 minute songs that are all sung in an old style of a Swiss dialect. It very much represents where they're from. It's a very esoteric and aggressive style that is having some drunken fun with it. Not so much a focus on punk styled songs as punk energy applied to black metal songs that are raw and quick to punch through these 5 minute songs and still make it feel energetic. There's an arcane feeling to it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a pretty straightforward thing, right? It's not anything to think too deeply about. They cut right through these songs and they show a lot of personality doing it. Yeah, it's just kind of worth giving a spin and giving a chance and see if it hits with you. Waterline is a debut album from Eventide, a offshoot of progressive death doom metal group Epitaph, where I think they wrote a lot of this during creating Two, their second full-length album, and one that took a lot of interesting points of divergence. And I think this would have been too far to go with some of these songs, because these are a mixture of dark ambient pieces, saxophone-led ambience. There's some drone guitar in here too. There's even some vocal work here. They cite inspiration which varies from like Tangerine Dream and Klaus Schulze to Ulver, and I would assume like, maybe Ulver and Sun O in collaboration kind of thing, where there are some distorted guitar drones here on a couple of songs that sort of frame the experience in an interesting way. There's some use of modular synths and analog effects and whatnot, and again, saxophones. What they produce here is something that is experiential. It's sort of linear in its movement, but it's not the usual stuff. And I think the thing that I felt like was lacking was they introduced this with vocals on the first track. The first track is the one that wasn't fully improvised. They had some overdubs and things added to it. The vocals really do a lot to add to the experience. I think all of these songs could have used some kind of vocals or presence in addition, because that helps this stand out from more of this type of thing. I really love the album art. I really like the sound of this record. I feel it's a great addendum to their second album under Epitaph. In general, I think this is just a cool thing that I like them to expand upon more. So I'd fully intended to review this Tasmanian heavy psychedelic rock group second full-length album, but I found that it was just a little bit daunting to go through all of the details of this record when I had so much else going on. So I wanted to at least touch upon it, and you mentioned this is one of the best records of the month. They really do well to bring in the kind of the rainbow-esque side of the band, the really tuneful late 70s Deep Purple side of the band into this record, and overall just a catchier, more present, and more successful kind of keyboard and Hammond organ led side of the band. Otherwise, I think that they've returned from their last record almost completely changed, and in a way where if you're familiar with their work, they were an interesting kind of dark, heavy psychedelic rock band. They had sort of a heavy metal touch to their work, and now they've still got that proto kind of heavy metal feeling to some of these songs, but they've got this more epic and confident sense of movement, which is just all completely refined, and they've done such a fantastic job with this record. At the sound of the tolling bell, the mist began to rise. The crest of the night obscured our sight, and darkness. Sentinels is the fourth full-length album from Vulture, a Dortmund, Germany-based speed metal quintet, and one who have steadily evolved in terms of their songwriting since the beginnings. Now, this has always been kind of a serviceable speed metal throwback that has really nailed the early to mid-80s speed metal sound. They've always been very impressive with like a little bit of Show No Mercy in their sound here and there that really stood out to me. I feel like their second record was kind of a strong high point beyond the first. The third record was just kind of like, oh, well, there's just another one, not that great. They took a detour tour in 2022 and put out a heavy metal record under the name Lucifer with just some of the members involved that seemed to refrain into something that was more effective at their core examination of the effective traditional heavy metal songwriting. And I feel like that's translated at least a little bit into what Sentinels does. This is just a little bit of a better written, more energetic, and it's a very natural result from Vulture. It's exactly their sound. They've written better songs here. I don't know how else to put it. They're just catchier. They're less indulgent in an awkward way, and it just feels like that they've gone back to the fundamentals of what's good about Vulture. And for me, that's their most representative and best record to date for my own taste, and just an instant hit with me. So the great thing about iteration on a band that is known for dissonant death metal is that usually there's a point of progress, or there's a level of iteration they reach where there's this one defining work that puts the rest of their discography in context, essentially. What were they always trying to do? And once they've finally done it, we sort of see that seeded throughout their discography. And that's kind of the case with Replicant. I think this latest, third full-length album brings in some of the 90s metal influences. It brings in some of the almost metallic hardcore feeling movement of things, and contextualize it within technical death metal of the moment, dissonant death metal in general, and something a little bit more cumulative, a little bit more stylized, that is in direct focus on Malignant Life, their 2021 LP. I think most of what they brought on Malignant Life is echoed here. They brought back some of the original intent of the band. They brought in a little bit more variety, and so this is maybe the best representative version of this band. Now, for me, the riffs aren't always right with this band. I think it's just not really to my taste. Some of the more simple hardcore metalcore-ish kind of feeling rhythms there, it's of a different generation than mine. I appreciate the skill involved in what they're doing, and I think the lead guitars and the rhythm section all get it pretty much right on this record. It was entertaining. It's not quite for me. Now, when I was previewing music to include on this list, and I usually listen to, at least half the album, at least a few of the singles, and get an idea of what I'm in for before I go in and do a short review. When I added this to my list and I sort of finalized it ahead of time, this is one of those records where the singles can kind of dupe your expectations. The opener, Ocean Queen, kind of gets it right. There's a kind of a witchcraft feel to it, an early Sabbath and Soundgarden touch to their sound. You kind of get what they're going for. They had this exuberant, catchy lead single, Flowers for Teeth, for this thing, and I was like, wow, if the rest of the record is like Flowers for Teeth, I'm into this kind of throwback 70s meets 90s psychedelic stoner rock sound. And they pull a switcheroo there in the midst of this record, where this record is nothing like their last record, Calm Before the Calm, I think back in 2019, which was more of a noisy, heavier psychedelic rock kind of stoner rock album, whereas this record is kind of like the most recent Graveyard record, where they pull back into the blues a bit deeper. They slink into more of a jazzier mode, and this is very much the most chill thing from the Lunar Effect yet. There is far less energy on this thing overall than expected, and that's not a bad thing. I think they find their finesse here in their more laid-back moments, and much like a band like Greenseeker, you kind of feel like that they're in their mode more when they're easier going. They're putting on kind of a more relaxed show.